This is episode 197 of the Wildlife Photography Podcast. In this episode, what's holding your photography back? Hey everybody, my name is Jerry, I'm from Wild Eye, and this podcast has been coming for a while because I think a lot of people who start photography and who get better with photography kind of lose the road a little bit along the way. So there's a couple of places in photography where I think people hide. I think they hide behind gear. I think they hide behind a lack of knowledge. I think they hide behind ego. I think they hide behind the one or two images they've created in the past and that's all they have. But let me just back it up a touch. I saw a quote on Instagram, was it yesterday? Something in the line of, if you're going to think out the box, you better understand the box very well. Now, I love that because if you look at courses and workshops, and I've seen this a lot the last while, people will come in with whatever foundation of knowledge they have, and you'll teach them new things. You'll teach them, for example, and I'm going to use this because I do it often, is the slow shutter type stuff. So panning, motion blurs, radial blurs. I love that. Now, just before I carry on, in the past, I've mentioned the continuum of wildlife photography, and it could be the continuum of photography, but it has to do with you're not going to just arrive at any given moment in photography, in whether it's wildlife or otherwise, and jump straight to the creative. You need to get there. So in wildlife photography, that continuum for me goes document. That's when you get to the thing, whatever thing, elephant, lion, leopard, pangolin, black panther, and you just get a shot. You just take an image. You don't make an image. You just take an image because that thing might then disappear, and it's proof. It's literally just saying to someone, there it is, proof of what I saw. So the first one is proof. Then the next stage is document. Document is just good, solid shooting. I'm going to say boring, right? Because you just shoot what you see. It's what I say to people from a wildlife photography point of view is, imagine you pick up a book on African mammals or on mammals of Svalbard or wherever you travel. It's the images you'll see in the book that shows you what it looked like. This is what a polar bear looks like from the front, a face, a side shot, and so on. So it's the kind of boring stuff that we just document. So proof is literally just grab a shot so you can show someone what you saw. Document becomes good photography but boring. It's just, there it is. There's nothing much to it. The next stage for me on my continuum is narrative. Now that would be something that gets the viewer asking a question. That is, for example, what is he going to do? How did that happen? What's chasing him? What is he chasing? Is he going to go up or down the tree? Whatever. There's a little bit more. In wildlife, it comes back to animal behavior a lot. It's knowing animal behavior and photographing accordingly to capture that story, to capture that narrative. It's also a place where I think the most interesting shots happen. Let's be honest, proof shots is cool. I see a pangolin, I say, look, I saw a pangolin. You're like, yay, okay, move on. Nobody cares. The next stage, document, is fine, but it's boring as shit because it's what everybody does. It's the safe shooting, and yes, it's necessary, but the narrative, the understanding of the animal behavior in wildlife photography is where the win is. And if you can photograph that and document that, that's cool. Then at the end of that, you get creative, the creative phase. So I say to people on expeditions and tours that I host, when we get to any sighting, take a proof shot if you have to. That's cool. You can also use it as a sketch shot where you're just kind of getting your settings ready and kind of getting into the game. Then spend some time documenting what you're seeing. Now, that's kind of the fillers. You're just kind of shooting, and also the more you do it and the more open you are to it, your photographic voice and your photographic mind during you documenting will pick up stuff. For example, document the face, a portrait shot, then the whole body, then maybe the feet, and you start documenting what you see. That will then start saying to you, ooh, this is interesting, let me go deeper on that. The creative then comes in where you sit back, you change your lenses, and the narrative first, and that will be to see if there's any stories to tell. A sleeping lion is not a story to tell photography-wise because it's just sitting. You're documenting. Narrative for me would be leaving negative space to ask the question, is something coming in? it's interaction, it's two animals fighting, hunting, mating, whatever. So narrative is a bit more busy, but a lot of the time in narrative, you cannot decide. You have to be reliant on the subjects that you're photographing. It's up to them to do something. And then you get to creative. This is where you as the photographer decide intentionally to do something different. Pan, radial blur, slow motion, and so on and so forth. Now, that's my continuum. What happens is people will learn a new technique, for example, motion blur or panning, and then it's all they do. They try and force every single scene into that. And I think people hide behind it because it's very easy to take a new technique, only do that, and hide behind, I'm just trying. At some point, you're going to stop trying and you have to start executing. So yes, we all have to work on our photography. But if you get stuck trying something for too long and you use that as an excuse, oh no, it's a new technique, I haven't got it yet, you're stopping your own growth. You really are. The other thing I think where people hide behind is gear. I've just got this camera, I'm still learning it. Or I need a better lens, a bigger lens, a wider lens, a longer lens, whatever the case is. But also, people, if you're going to go into a scene, whether you do portraits, wildlife, whatever you're photographing, if you're going to go into a scene and you're worrying about, should I bring my beanbag, my gimbal, my tripod, my monopod, my ball head, my circular polarizer, my ND filters, and you're creating a very interesting situation for yourself, because the more gear you have, the more difficult you're going to have, a difficult time you're going to have to choose which ones to use. In the past, I've had a lady on safari who've had like four camera bodies, right? Each with its own lens. And you get less shots then because you're hiding behind, oh, I've got all the equipment. But when push comes to shove and you have to choose something to use to photograph, the choices hamstring you. So people who come on a trip and they just load more gear and more gear and more gear, I think you need to ask yourself, are you really going to use all of that? Are you planning to shoot all of that and use it? Or are you just making it difficult for yourself, and are you hiding behind the gear to stay away from making creative decisions in the field? I think it's worth a think. It's definitely worth thinking about, because people hide behind it. Ego. People hide behind their egos. They might be this amazing photographer, but then they are so concerned and obsessed in instances that of what people think about them and their work, that they'll choose certain things to lead with, and that's it. And in the field, let's look at each other's images. No, I must process first. Dudette, nobody cares. They're not judging you. We just want to see your images because it's cool to share. People also, and this on Instagram is a biggie, people have one or two images that are pretty good, and what they'll then do is always fall back on that. That, to me, the moment you start looking back and pulling images only without creating new, is the day you put your camera down. Then you can look back and say, these were my favorites. I think for me, and I'm sure for some of you guys, that the best image that I have created is still coming. I don't think I've been there. I think I've got some pretty good images that I like, but your best work is still to come. If it's not, you need to look at your growth and your kind of road as a photographer. So it's been an interesting couple of weeks for me on the road, because meeting people from different genres, and these things pop up. But the quote that I mentioned to start off with is, if you're going to think outside the box, you need to know the box very well. Phenomenal. Love it. Because now, like I said, we learn a new technique. You learn slow shutter, and what do? You only do that. But you don't understand the fundamentals of the different elements that make up the technique. Do you understand 100% that if you take your aperture up from 2.8 to 222, what happens to shutter speed? If you're going to do that, the exposure might jump, so you have to compensate. So you have to understand the box, the foundation, and then think out of it. I think it's a really, really good quote and got me thinking. But yeah, guys, for your own photography, whatever you're photographing, street, lifestyle, weddings, landscapes, nature, whatever it is, make sure you are not hiding behind something. Make sure you're not hiding behind your gear or your ego, or your lack of knowledge, or techniques. All of those things will hold you back if you obsess about them. We need to let go. You need to, and I mean, I did a presentation last night in Los Angeles here, and every photography presentation that I do, I always include this. It's an Andy Warhol quote that basically says, make art, in our case, photography. Make art, put it out there. Let people decide whether they like it or not. While they're deciding, because you shouldn't give a fuck, it's about you, go and make more. So use the techniques, use your gear, guys, but don't let it be a stumbling block or it stops you from creating, because that is going to end badly. Always will. You're never going to grow. And for me, if you don't grow, it's going to become boring. If it becomes boring, you're going to stop. That's just me. Anyway, new podcast live. I hope you guys enjoy. Let me know your thoughts. What holds you back as a photographer? What do you struggle with? What things do you sometimes think, oh, no, I can't do this? Let me know. Let's talk about it. If you want to get hold of me, any of the social media platforms, Jerry van der Walt. You can also send me an email, jerry@wild-i.co.za. That's wild-i with a hyphen in between, .co.za. And as always, thank you for your time. I truly appreciate your ears. I appreciate your eyeballs if you're watching on Instagram TV. Thank you so much. And I will chat to you all in the next episode. My name is Jerry. I'm from Wild Eye. Have a good one. Goodbye.